Hi everybody, I'm here with Sue Patel, author of Putting the Human Back into HR. Success as an HR professional begins with you. Sue's story is really fascinating. She's a long-term HR professional, and she wrote a book. Was it 3 years ago, Sue? Is it that long
Yep.
ago?
2018 it was published.
Yeah,
Two,
so
3 years ago.
2.5 years ago. And I'm interested to find out what the impact has been, because I've seen some of the places, I've seen Sue on so many different stages and platforms since the book came out. And I'm not going to say the book was responsible for all of that, but I'm really fascinated to know Sue's journey and to share it with you and to see how Sue's been using her book. So hi Sue, thanks for joining me.
Hi Joe, thank you so much for having me. It's just really awesome to be in this space with you and share like the phenomenal journey that I've had over the last kind of 18 to 24 months really.
Yeah, so it's awesome. So I'd like to just start by, you've got more than one business now, Sue, and I don't know if that was the case before. Is that correct? Am I?
Yeah, so I have a HR training and consulting company, which kind of looks at really training and consulting with businesses and helping them really develop good HR processes and create good cultures in their businesses. And I also have the HR Leadership Academy, which is training HR professionals. So I do coaching and mentoring for HR professionals around how to really be successful in their role. As the book says, that success begins with you. And that's what I help them do, is be successful in their role and to be more confident, to really step into their leadership and really hold the vision for any business that they work in.
And so for me, the thing I loved about your book is where you came from, which is putting the human back into HR. And this was really like
Yes.
nice. So where did that come back from? So you're clearly an expert and a specialist in HR, but your business is relatively new still, and so your book came along with that. Can you tell me a bit more about the background? What got you to do?
Yeah, 100%. So thank you for that. So I've been in HR for well over 25 years. I know I don't look it, but I worked for Tesco for 27 years actually, and in 20 of those years were in HR. And I went from being a shop floor trading manager to being a human resources manager the next day, with no training, no qualifications or anything. I just kind of had this natural way of being with people that I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I saw people weren't being treated right. I had my own experience, which I shared in the book about a manager kind of swearing at me on the shop floor. And, I always felt like actually this is not the right way to be with people. And I've always felt like I wanted to be someone in a position of influence where people don't get treated that way in a workplace. And that's even with having people in HR in an organization, people were still being treated that way. So I was like, I'm going to be a HR professional that makes a real difference to people. And I remember in my first role, I started off in a Tesco store in Leighton in East London, and it was the month of Ramadan, and we had many kind of staff members who were what's the word, so they were they were fasting. Yeah, it was Ramadan, and they broke their fast at 4:30 or whatever it was, and they were going on the shop floor to buy food or going home and all that kind of stuff, and the canteen closed at 2:30. And I was like, they work hard all day with no food and water. Like, the least we could do is provide them with something, right? So I spoke to the lady in the restaurant and I said, look, can we organize something for these guys during the month of Ramadan to support these guys and just provide them with the service. And she was like, oh, we've never done it before. And I said, I know we haven't, but you know what, you'll be doing, you'll be really serving a community here. And she was really up for it, because I really enrolled her. I didn't just ask her to do it, I really enrolled her in like doing it and who she could be, like when she did it. And it was just really, like the staff were just so thrilled. Like, they were just really acknowledged, they felt listened to, and they were just really grateful that we could do something like that for them. And it was just so simple to do, and the way to do that is just by looking at, who are these people, who are the people that work here, what really matters to them, what makes them tick, what motivates them. And I was one of those HR managers who didn't do HR from an office. I was very much on the shop floor a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know, when my bosses kind of said, oh, you know, you've got to do duty management and be in charge of the shop and stuff like that, you know, I really loved that opportunity because it got me to be with people. And I was able to have conversations with people, like, what are they dealing with? You know, I found out, you know, where people had pets, you know, who's in their family, who's taking care of, you know, whether they were taking care of somebody, whether they had kids or whatever, you know, and I had this real personal relationship with people, you know. So when situations came up in the, you know, in the business around somebody wanting, let's say, you know, they've had a bereavement in their family or whatever, you know, and it says in the policy like 5 days, you know, is all you get. Like if it's someone who's close to you, like 5 days isn't enough to grieve really sometimes, you know. And it's not just even about your family members. So the policy always stated that, you know, it's your immediate family, but actually for some people it's their dog or their cat or their uncle who's raised them or whatever, you know, like, so
But
it's
it's thinking
really, you
about
know,
the
kind of saying,
human. It's actually
exactly
thinking
that.
about
It's
that.
actually, you know, yeah, like what do they need right now? And I remember even for me, like when my daughter was very young, you know, I went back into work and she got really ill. And and I said to my boss, look, you know, I'm going to need to take a couple of days off. I'll just take it as holiday days, you know. And she was amazing. She said, you're not having that as holiday days. I'm just going to let you have that time off. Go and take care of your daughter because it's not a holiday, Sue.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, wow. You know, so I also learned from my mentors that this is how you really take care of people, because actually, how much did my loyalty go up with her? Like tenfold, you
Yeah.
know. And then you kind of think, actually, when people do stuff like that for you, you can't forget.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
memorable, and it's about the human. Your emphasis is really on the humanity, and the person they are,
100%,
rather than the resource.
100%.
You know, because there's always a
Yeah,
business angle in HR. I think that's the balance that all HR professionals are trying to achieve. But the
yeah,
real emphasis is
100%.
like actually start with the humans. Everything flows from, you know, all the
Yeah,
good stuff comes from actually working that place. And
absolutely.
can I just ask? So you wrote your book. How long had your business been going when you published the book? Like how long have you been operating?
Not very long actually, because in 2016, it was a pivotal year in my life really. So in the February, I separated from my husband after 10 years. In the March, I lost my job, so I became redundant. And then in the April, I sold my house.
Wow.
So it was just one of those years, and I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to my future and my daughter's future? And I was sitting in this well of despair, as you can imagine, with all this stuff happening to me within 3 months. And being very alone and with no concept of what I'm going to do with my future, because all I've ever known is being employed.
Yeah.
But one thing that, you know, and I was kind of operating from a fear, you know, from fear really. So I was like, the one thing that I know is how to do HR in retail. So I'm going to go and apply for a job in Sainsbury's. And I didn't get that job after, you know, doing lots of planning and stuff. And then I just kind of decided, you know, a friend of mine said, look, Sue, you could just do this on your own. You've got everything you need. You could just do it on your own. So it was very, pretty much in 2016, I started my company in October, you could say. I started to kind of go out there and network with businesses.
Yeah.
But it's very new. You know, I remember going to my first networking meeting and coming home and like crying because I've never had to do a 30-second pitch, and you know, and I just really missed my manager and my peers, and the, you know, having an organization like looking after me. It was now like I'm on my own, you know. So very quickly though, I realized that I wanted to get a team around me, and I started to go to these networking events more regularly and building up relationships with people, because that is what is going to have you be successful, is who you know and the relationships that you build. So it's very new. That was in 2016. And then in 2017, I went to an event with Andy Harrington, called Power to Achieve. And, you know, he was on stage. I went there with my brother, and he was talking about writing content and, you know, writing a book and, you know, building your credibility. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to write a book. You know, and my brother was like, yeah, you need to write a book and get on that stage up there, right? And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I started having this vision of like me being that. And I created my vision board of what I wanted in my future. And then I plugged myself into networks where there's, you know, public speakers and authors. So it's no surprise that I became one of those, right?
Yeah, it becomes normal then, doesn't it?
Because
You
when
see it
you're around,
everywhere.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and then I started writing my book, and I didn't know how it was going to end up. And I started just writing on a simple Word document. And there were times throughout, I kind of had this system that I created because I wanted to help HR be more balanced, not to be all process, not to be all people, but to have these
Well,
5
I was going
areas
to
that I
ask you
wanted.
about that because this is fascinating to me. So you've got a very, very clear methodology in your book that you express in your book really well. So you've got
Yeah,
the 5 Ps, and then
yeah,
you've got a sub model for most of them. Either there's some R's and S's, and then you've got team, legal, and achieve. So
yeah,
and you were clearly, 20 plus years experience as a HR professional. So you're clearly a
yeah,
specialist and an expert already on this. But at this point, you were creating kind of your own IP and your own methodology that can be claimed as
yeah.
yours. What came first? Did you already have that fully formed when you began writing, or did this come through the writing?
Yeah, so I had that when I went to Andy's event, he was talking about creating a model and a framework and stuff. And I was like, actually, I come from a background in retail where everything is very process and
Yeah,
systems. So I really like that idea. And I thought, actually, if I'm going to teach somebody how to do something, I also want to have a structure and a system in place. So I created that. And it's all based around like my own experiences. So I started to look at like what's made me be the HR manager that every store manager wanted to work with. I had a couple of store managers that moved from shop to shop and they took me with them. That's such an acknowledgement of who you are as a person,
yeah.
and who you are in your job as well. So I was like, what made me the HR person that people just wanted to work with and wanted in their team? And it was all these 5 areas. It was really having a balance in all of these areas. It wasn't just about being process driven. It wasn't just about being very peoply and soft. It was about having a balance in all of those. Because, as a HR professional, you also want to help the business grow,
Yeah.
and the people grow. And you've got to build relationships. And as I said earlier, partnerships, the middle P is the core of everything that we do in an organization. So I started working on that model, with Andy's team, and that's really been the foundation of the book, really.
And I imagine you're
But I wanted
speaking
to,
as well. I
yeah,
imagine you're speaking.
100%. Like when I'm sharing now, like that's what it's about. It's about having balance in all of those areas. It's not about one or the other. And the reason why I call the book "Putting the Human Back into HR" is because HR has moved so much away in lots of different ways from being people orientated. They've become very systems or process driven, or compliance driven, or even nowadays they're very much strategic. you know and actually, even, and it's great that we've evolved. We've gone from having no say in a business to having a seat at the top table, where we can influence matters. But actually, like in stores, for example, now there's no HR person, especially in the stores. And from my experience, there's lots more grievances happening. People don't know who to go to because managers and line managers are so busy. They're getting it from the customers, they're getting it from the people, they're getting it from the directors. They're too busy to take care of people. you
Yeah.
know so like, who is there to listen to people? There isn't anyone that they can really go to. And now, because the people managers are very remote,
Mm-hmm.
it's all done through email, or it's all done through there's just no access to anybody who they can really speak to. And you're supposed to speak to your manager, and if you've got an issue with the way your manager's being, who do you go to?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you're
then you
kind of
put in a
stuck. Yeah.
grievance.
So this,
Yeah, so I think there's just got to be a bit more balance around, actually having someone that people can have access to in the workplace.
and in terms of your book, so you wrote the book, and you obviously had a system and a process already in place. So was the writing relatively easy for you, or did you still kind of have the
No,
struggles that writers get?
yeah, I struggled loads because I'm from Northwest London, right? And I don't speak posh. So my writing was just the way I speak, and I was like, oh my god, like what am I gonna do? So, but I just kind of wrote it, like I just let it all flow through me. Like I just wrote it, got my chapters. So I did like a straw model of what the subjects, the chapters that I wanted, and then I started padding it out with my system and what I
Mhm.
wanted to say and stuff like that. And luckily for me, through my networking events, I met a lady who was a copywriter and also in HR. So she really helped me word it so that it sounded really cool, like grammatically, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd finished and don't get me wrong, like it wasn't an easy process because there were also, I was going through thoughts in my head, like it was really getting in my own way around who would want to read my book. Why would anybody want to read anything? I've never written a book before. I kind of just saw myself as being an employee in an organization before, like never really thought of Sue Patel being an author,
Mm.
and so I just kept stopping myself throughout, like while I was writing it.
Those
And then
doubts
what I
and
then
kind of
started to do
imposter
as well
syndrome.
is like, yeah, yeah, and also what I try to do to make the book look really good is adding other people's work into my, like models and stuff like that. Because I thought, yeah, I'll just back it up with what they've done. And then I had the whole transcript done, it was ready, and then I didn't know what to do with it.
Mm.
And then my friend Beju, like he published his book with you guys, and I said,
Yeah.
oh, I need some help. Like because the thing is, right, is, I could have self-published it. I could have gone to any old publishing company, right? But there's a couple of things that I had as my criteria. One was that it's got to be professional,
Mhm.
right? It's got to be something that, I imagined, like, I was like, I want a HR professional to be reading my book on a train and be really comfortable and confident to be sitting there on a train reading it, you know? So
Yeah.
it had to look good and be professional and really create the right image.
Yeah.
And then obviously when I came to you guys, you took out all the rubbish that I was putting in to try and hide my own story and my own truth. You said, get it all out. Let's let it just be about you and your story, which was amazing. That was really great acknowledgement for me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the guys who edited it were just phenomenal. I
Yeah.
just can't thank them enough. Like if
We're,
they're
we're
watching,
we're so like
thank you. Like
blessed with a brilliant team that we carefully
100%.
kind of attract our team and nurture them and look after them. But yeah, we are lucky. But that's really great to hear. And that actually that thinking just from the start is where we like authors that are going to use their book to grow their business, their profile, need to be thinking is like, how is this going to land when somebody picks it up? Is it going
Yeah.
to look professional? Is it going to give you the impression that I'm dealing with a professional, or does it look a bit like self-done and a bit not
Yeah, and I
quite,
didn't.
not that kind of level of
Yeah,
finish that you'd expect from a properly published book?
100%. And I did approach a couple of people did approach me to kind of help me with publishing it, but I just didn't like, it was very salesy, very in your face and stuff, and I was just like, it can't be that kind of book.
Yeah,
It's got
it's
to
got to be
be pure
service.
content driven and adding value and serving the people that are going to read it. I don't want to be shoving sales in their face. And that was really important for me, because the book is really there to serve the
Yeah.
HR,
And can I ask, how did you
community.
manage the process from the point of view you recently started a business, so you've got a very new young business that needs a lot of momentum and a lot of pushing. You're a mum,
Yeah.
so you had a daughter to manage as well as that, as growing a business, and you managed to write the book. How was that in terms of your energy and how were you able to kind of achieve that so effectively? Because your book's brilliant, your book's so well written. um, but you
Thank
managed to
you.
do all those things in a relatively quick amount of time. What was your kind of secret, or how, looking back on it, what do you think was going on?
Yeah, I think so my vision board was really cool. Like that kind of really helped keep me focused on where I was going, because when you've got clarity about what your future is going to look like, and you're focused on where you're going rather than worrying about where you've been, I think that really helps. But also as a business owner, you can't just be like, right, I'm just going to go and run a business. You've got to really take yourself on, and I was dealing with so much at the time. I was dealing with guilt and blame from just separating from my husband. I was dealing with feelings of lack of worthiness and self-doubt from losing my job and not
Mm.
being needed anymore. I was completely alone. But I met one of my friends kind of said, that, if you really want to take yourself on, go and do this course at Landmark. And really, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go and do it. you know. And it was just one of those things, yeah, that, you know, when you just trust someone, you think, okay, I've never heard of this personal development program before. And you know, my friend, like, he's done loads of personal development work. He was like, this is by far the best personal development you're ever going to do. And I was like, all right, cool. If you're saying it, then I'm going to go and do it. And I didn't even go to an introduction. I just registered, and then I did it, and it was the best thing that I've ever done. Really I literally went there on the Friday, and I came out on the Sunday like a new person, because I'd managed to just unpack all the stories that I created from my past, all the, you know, limiting beliefs and all that kind of stuff, really unpacking all of them. You know, one of the things that really transformed in my life was I hadn't spoken to my dad for 15 years. And I contacted my dad.
Wow.
On Sunday, you know, my dad left when I was like 14, and you know, I hadn't seen him for 15 years. He'd never contacted me or my brothers, and I was just like making my dad really wrong, you know, around what kind of dad doesn't want to know kids and doesn't want to check in how they are and all that kind of stuff. He's dead for me, I don't care, you know. But one of the things that I learned on the program is, you know, it doesn't matter who people are for you, you get to choose who you want to be for people, you know. And I chose who I wanted to be for my dad.
I love that.
You know, and I called him up and I just said, I'm really sorry I've not been around. I completely owned it, because actually, as well, as much as he's not been there for me, I've actually not been there for him either, you know. And all he said was, it's okay, how's my granddaughter? You know, it was just absolutely phenomenal. And now, like, you know, we've got a great relationship. I mean, that year was the first time my dad had all of his kids and all of us around his house for his birthday, for dinner. And now if I don't call him after a couple of weeks or whatever, he's saying to my sister, like, you know, how come she hasn't called? So it's just really, you know, a real great place to be now with my dad. Yeah. So really taking myself on and letting go of those limiting beliefs. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, we still have, you know, there's always different layers when you're coming up against something new. You got to keep unpacking them. But I feel in a great place now, you know, and as a result of publishing my book in November 2018, at that point I was invited to go and speak in Barcelona. Actually, that was the first one, right? And somebody just random contacted me and said, oh, would you like to speak at our corporate event in Barcelona? And I was like, what, me in Barcelona at a corporate event, you know, up against people like, you know, Lloyd's Banking Group and, you know, Barclays Bank? And I was like, no, I can't go. And then one of my coaches, you know, he was like, you got to go, Sue. Like, if you want to, you know, play a big game, you got to be with the big boys, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go. And it was really great. The whole event was around digitalization and technology. And there was me talking about putting the human back into businesses. Yeah. And it was just phenomenal. The whole event was all about technology, robots, and all that kind of stuff. And there's me talking about, well, here's why people are resisting change, is because you don't know what matters to them. You don't understand your people.
Yeah.
And it was just phenomenal. Without even trying, I took 10 copies. The first box that came to me, I took all of them with me when I went. It was literally the week after, and I sold 10 copies without even trying.
Yeah.
Easily.
And can I just ask about that gig? Did you was that before your book was even published, or was that just after your book was published? Did somebody get a copy and say, we want Sue? Or how did that come about?
No, I think I just did, I must have just done a post to kind of say, this is what's coming, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, just kind of building on that credibility, you know, somebody just contacted me. And then, you know, at that point, I hadn't actually gone full blown and said, oh, look what I've done. And then when I came back from Barcelona, I then did a video sharing about what I've just done. I opened the box, you know, like, I was like, this is what I've done. This is why I've written the book. Yeah. And then from that, then I connected to loads of different HR groups. And I just thought, actually, who can I get this out to? How can I start really engaging with different groups of people and getting into different networks? And I found loads of different groups on Facebook. One of them was the Maldives Association for HR Professionals. I'm thinking, like, how many HR people can there be in the Maldives? You know, it's just an island, right? But when I looked on their page, you know, they're having all these events and, you know, there loads of people were attending. So I was just like, wow, that's really, so I just started interacting, didn't think anything of it. And at the end of that week, I just arrived at Landmark to do my course, right? And I checked my messages in the car, and it was from the president of the HR association in the Maldives. Right? And he said, "Oh, hi Sue, I've just seen that you've published your book. I'd like to speak to you about collaborating for our next event."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "What, in the Maldives?" Like, that can't be. Anyway, so that weekend, we had a great conversation, and he was such a lovely man. I'm really, really proud to say that we're really, really good friends. And they invited me to come and speak in the Maldives, and it was like my first proper speaking engagement. Like, to go to the Maldives, like, I remember being in the Maldives, and I took a picture, right, saying me and my daughter are just in paradise, and people were saying that that's on their bucket list, and I'm thinking, how blessed am I that somebody has actually paid for me to go there
Yeah.
and speak.
And I imagine at that moment, your status as an author and an authority in what you do must have felt like far more kind of um, tangible to you. It's like, I've arrived, I am actually an author, and that's great. Like, I often ask authors to think in terms of promotion, their status. How are they signifying that they're an
Yeah,
author? So you were doing that brilliantly by doing the unboxing and saying, like, look what I've just done, and kind of sharing that, and that often spreads.
yeah.
But then it's about the opportunity. So the Maldives is like amazing. I bet your daughter thought like it was worth all the kind of time you were busy writing the book. I'm sure that was a kind of a great
100%.
payback.
100%. She's just incredibly proud of what I have achieved.
Yeah.
And she does say, like, Mom, I just can't imagine that. She's been with me when I'd lost my job and everything kind of went wrong in 2016. Well, I kind of actually went right, because where I am now, I wouldn't be if that hadn't happened. So she's been on that journey with me, and she does regularly tell me that she's really proud of me,
Oh, that's
and what
brilliant.
I've achieved. And she was with me when I opened the box. Like, I said to her, like, come on, let's both open the box together. And we took some pictures, and it was a real proud moment. But yeah, it's just been incredible. And going out there, like the Maldives Association for HR Professionals, they bought 150 copies of my book. They shipped it all out there. They literally, just, it was just phenomenal, just the whole experience being out there. And I was on this stage, with these big screens and the red carpet in front of 400 people doing a keynote around my book, which was phenomenal.
And so from that,
And as a,
go ahead. Sorry, we're
go
slightly out of
on.
sync. Carry on.
No, I was just saying that, that's just kind of then led to other speaking engagements as well throughout the year. I've also spoken in Rome. I've spoken at the BBC, at American Express, with their HR teams. And it just feels like it has really built my credibility as a HR influencer.
Yeah.
And now that I'm coaching HR professionals, coaching and mentoring HR professionals, just the other day, one of my mentees was kind of saying, right, I'm going to research HR gurus and what they're doing out there, because she wants to kind of aspire to be one in her field.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of those people on her list. Now
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's just really cool. It's really cool to have that acknowledgement and that recognition.
Yeah.
And even today I posted about my book on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I posted a review of the book, and why I wrote the book. And the book is really about the qualifications, and people can tell you what to do in the job, right? What you don't really ever get to learn is how to be in the job.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And this book is about me sharing how to be in HR. I actually thought of that as a title, like, early on when I was writing it, that this book is about how to be in HR.
Yeah.
And that's the area that I kind of coach and mentor the people that I work with now, my clients. So
And
yeah, sorry, you were going to say.
well, I was going to ask about that. So you answered the question. It was brilliant. It's like, what other opportunities have come about? And my one question around that: how intentional have you been in seeking those opportunities, and how kind of like organically did they arise? Do you have a specific strategy that you'd recommend for other authors potentially to make sure that you're seen in the right places? And you talked about groups earlier, about HR groups.
Yeah, so one is just getting yourself out there and plugging into different groups. And what I find with the corporate clients, if you like, because they are all corporate clients, and there's a big difference between entrepreneurial clients and corporate clients. So working in corporate, I know, because I come from that background, is actually I wasn't open to personal development when I was working for my company, because I just went on training programs that they provided for me. So I never really invested in my development as much as what I have done as an entrepreneur, right? So the message is very different when you go out there. You can't just be like salesy, you can't be like in people's faces, it's very subtle, and you've got to really help them see the value of working with you. All right. And the only way that, for me, how that has worked out for me is that I just share my story. I share that I've had those experiences, I've been in the place that they're in, and these are the things that I've done. And then I just kind of put an offer out there, or a call to action, a very subtle one, to kind of say, if this is something that interests you, contact me. But as well as that, I do lots of webinars, on subjects that really matter to my audience. These are free webinars, and people, I did one called Leading Difficult Conversations for HR, and I had about 200 HR professionals register for that webinar, which was phenomenal. And also what that generates is an amazing client list of emails. So I make sure that I stay in communication with them, sending out regular emails about what is available, how I can support them, but also lots of value and content that will really help them. At the moment, HR is going through a really tough time. In the early days of COVID, they were all engaged, understanding the policies and ins and outs of furlough, and trying to help people stay balanced with the anxieties of what was coming. And now many of them have found themselves being either, made redundant or about to be made redundant. So they're also dealing with stuff now. So really being in there, listening of like, what are they dealing with right now? I'm just about to embark, starting tomorrow, on a 4-week free program for a group of HR professionals who are out of work and really anxious about their future. And we're going to look at, goal setting, having a vision, working on personal image, and, all of that kind of stuff to keep them in their flow.
And you're already positioned as an author and an authority in that space. So it makes setting that up and attracting the audience that much easier.
100%.
Yeah, that's 100%. Superb.
And just to be consistent, because, not everyone's going to engage with you. Like, when I first started going on LinkedIn, I didn't have many people engaging with me and stuff. And you just got to keep at it. You got to keep at it, and people will start seeing you, and the more consistent you are, people will start. I've managed to get in the last year up to 5,000 followers, and they're all organic. And it's just really awesome. I'm getting messages every other day from people saying, I'm just so inspired by your posts, keep them coming. And it's just really great acknowledgement.
Fabulous. Thanks so much for your time, Sue. So I try and keep these conversations to around half an hour, and I could just ask you questions all day about, the difference between be, do, and have. And I just want to say, like, for anybody listening or watching now, where do people reach out to you? Because I'd say, like, from an entrepreneurial point of view, I've joined some of your webinars, and I know they're aimed more at an HR market, but I found huge value in them, because we're almost, with a smaller business like ours, you're dealing with people anyway. You're kind of having to do a bit of an HR function without an HR department. So where could people 100%. Find you?
And that's one of my, I was just going to say, that's one of my quotes, if you like, is once we understand people, it just makes life so much easier, because actually as people, we're all dealing with the same stuff, right? But we've got to understand what they're dealing with. And when we understand what they're dealing with, we can help each other out. But you've got to want to understand what people are dealing with. And it doesn't matter whether they're in HR or an entrepreneur or in sales or whatever. It's about really understanding who people are. So yeah, very much so. So people can reach me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. So I do a lot of my, not a marketing, but really sharing lots of content and adding value to the world on LinkedIn. And it's Sue Patel, SU Patel on LinkedIn.
Okay, brilliant. I'll put a link, if you don't mind, in the comments and in the Facebook
Yeah, of
group.
course. Yes.
And how about your business, Sue? Is there anywhere else people should be looking at to find you?
So I've got a website, hrtrainingandconsulting.com.
Brilliant.
And anybody in HR, I'm also the director of the HR Networking Club, which are online at the moment development groups for HR professionals to just come and take on their own personal development.
Superb. Thanks so much, Sue. Anything else you want to leave us with? Any kind of tips for other authors using their book to grow their profile?
Yeah, I just think don't just think, oh, your book is out now and that's it. You've got to constantly keep sharing about it. So today I shared about it after a while actually, but I do share about it probably once a month at least to keep it alive, and to remind people that I have written a book. And just I shared about it today on LinkedIn, and I've had several messages from people saying I've just ordered your book.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So you
So
just got to keep
just
doing
remember
it.
that just to remind people you're an author goes a long way to people wanting you to talk to their groups and to be in front of their audience.
Yeah, and also just to share, like, why did you write your book? I think that's really important. Is don't just put your book out there. Is share the story behind it.
Yeah.
Which then resonates with people.
Superb. Thank you so much, Sue. Thanks for your time, and it's great to just
You're
hear
welcome.
your story. How quickly, really, you've grown from expert to an authority in the short space of time. Like 4 years is nothing, really. That's really awesome.
Yeah.